talk about then the provincial finals that happened over the weekend, and we'll start off with the Leinster one. So it was Dublin 5-21, Louth 15. In terms of the score, and Sean Bugler, who won man of the match, he had 1-3, Cormac Costello had 5, Paul Mannion 1-1, Conor Callahan had 5 points, and then James McCarthy, Paddy Small, and Colin Baskell, they got a goal apiece. And I actually thought that the Sean Bugler one clipped off Paddy Small's heel, but there was no conclusive clip to prove it anyway. So I actually think Paddy Small possibly got 2 goals there. On the other side, Sam Mulroy scored 7 frees, 145 and 2 from play. Conor Grimes scored 2, and a few other lads got a point.
It's a grind some tank as well. Wearing a man's suit.
Do you remember a few years ago when he used to have really long blonde hair, like Mr. Perfect from the WWF wrestling days?
That's brilliant. Yeah. He did back in the day, all right, yeah. I think he has a fermentation business, would you believe, actually? That's what he's involved in, I think, yeah. Funny enough, I was at the Carlow game, and I go back to the Leinster final there, but the centre-back, Mark Fury, which I just thought was a great name as well, because there was a Johnny Fury in goals, like as in John Fury, Tyson's father. But Mark Fury was a world karate champion, and he was playing centre back for Carlow yesterday. But I digress.
Did you ever hear John Fury, the boxer, in Tyson Fury's father? Have you ever heard him in interviews?
Yeah.
My God, it's raw. When he talks about his partying days, there's one interview in particular.
I listened to it. Someone sent it on to me. It's raw. He is true to himself. I'll put it to you that way.
And he's not interested in a particular metal called copper. He's interested in another metal called... anyone who's seen it knows exactly what I'm talking about. But Dublin beating Louth. I mean, Louth had gotten to the provincial final, not exactly pulling up trees in terms of who they beat, performing really well. But it's not like they'd beaten a load of Division 1 teams on the way. I don't think anyone expected the margin of victory to be quite like this. Like 5-20, like 21-point hammering, really. It was tough to watch for a finish. But this was Dublin's most complete performance in a long time. And all of a sudden you're starting to think, well, they've looked flawed in the last couple of years. They still are a little bit flawed because we've seen it against Kildare and sometimes in the league. But they're just starting to pick up a little bit of speed now all of a sudden as they head into the All-Ireland series.
Starting to pick up speed when they need to, realistically, aren't they? Speaking of picking up speed, I wonder what's the nature of Jack McCaffrey coming off, or how bad is that as well? He's too fast. That's the problem. He's actually too fast, and he's probably doing himself harm by his own pace. But that's the report on the OurGame website there as well. It's just the Dubs are definitely look like they're coming to the boil when it really matters. To me, they were always going to win Leinster. That's obviously their 13th Leinster title in a row, but it's all about winning All-Ireland for them. And signs suggest that things are starting to pick up now with Sam Maguire in sight.
Yeah, and like they've so many free-flowing forwards, really. And like when you've got Conor Callahan, Paul Mannion, and we've kind of named some of the others, Cormac Costello and so on, and James McCarthy still flying around, and Kieran Kilkenny, and hopefully Jack McCaffrey's injury isn't that serious. They're obviously going to have a threat all the time. Colin Baskell came in late on, and he looked mad for goals. He helped set up one opportunity that Dean Rock fisted over the bar, and then he scored a beauty himself at the end. But 5-13 of 5-21 came from play. Like it was so one-sided, it was kind of beyond belief. And it's like it is a tough one for Mickey Hart. Obviously, he's got out with the best of intentions, but they got absolutely cleaned out in their own kick out, and they kept going long, and it kept not working, and they kept going long some more. And ultimately, they were just countered time after time and couldn't get out of their own area.
It's funny, Shane, you had heard, as I had, of Dublin playing a challenge game against Antrim 2 days after the Kildare game, and that they went 4-4-4, as in the most aggressive press in the history of Gaelic football. And they kind of did that real aggressive press the other yesterday as well at times. And Louth just couldn't get their hands on the ball. And it's kind of amazing to see, really, because it's just a team so stifled. But the Louth lads obviously didn't hear what we had heard about that challenge game against Antrim and that, because they maybe would have been a bit more forewarned had they.
Yeah, I mean, the first half, it was 1-8 from play to 3 points. I mean, the overall scoring was 112-6. And to be fair to Louth, after going 112-3 behind, and this is with Dublin scoring 110 in a row, during which time Louth didn't even have a shot. They made a bit of a burst. They scored 5 points in a row either side of half-time. And, to be fair to them, that was making a fair old burst. But they were just so wide open at the back. And I think, unfortunately, they haven't been playing at the top level of championship for, you know, in terms of like big games over the years, whereas Dublin have. And even though they both played Division 2, maybe Dublin were just sort of going through the gears before the championship. But you can't ignore some of the frailties that Dublin showed. Stephen Cluxon was out of action for 2 years. Half his kickouts in the first half didn't go to Dublin men, didn't finish up with Dublin men. And he's going to come up against tougher competition as the season goes on. Like, we know in their group, it's not going to be overly difficult. Just in terms of who they have in their group, and just I know that Louth have Cork, Kerry, and Mayo. Who is it that Dublin have again? I don't
not off the top of my head do I have it. But the thing about Cluxon is I don't know. I'd probably
Isn't it Kildare, West? I'll look it up.
I'd kind of be happy that Cluxon had a bit of a malfunction at this stage, maybe, rather than later on. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever playing and sometimes things are going too well and you almost need a bit of a kick in the backside almost? So I don't think that was a bad time for it to happen. Louth didn't exactly make hay. They had a bit of a revival before half time as a result of it. But yeah, I actually don't think that's a bad thing for it to happen at this stage. Much better happen at this stage than happen in a big knockout game, a semi-final or final. And I definitely think they'll stick with them as well.
Yeah, it's Roscommon, Kildare, and Sligo that they have in the group, so they're going to walk through that.
Yeah. Like, you'd imagine they'd win their third or fourth gear, or they'd win the 3 games in third or fourth gear there, you'd have to say. But even like Dessie Farrell is talking after about whether it's time to scrap the provincial competitions or not. He just said, the GA won't need me to tell them this. For years, I've been banging that particular drum. Look, I get it. It's quite political. Provincial councils have been established a long time and feel that they have a role and responsibility and that their contribution is important to the GA. While that is definitely the case, I think it's probably time to have a proper review of the competition and see what does benefit these big wins, the big discrepancies between teams. Is there a better mixture? Like, if Louth are the second best team in Leinster, that's very, very worrying. And they are, because they got to the Leinster final and they were third place in Division 2. That's very, very worrying for the Leinster Championship. Like, the Leinster Championship is a non-entity really in that case.
Yeah,